Mumbai, 8,000 tons of CND waste is generated every day. It is a 6,000 tons they produce every day in Bangalore.
आपने कभी ये सोचा है कि वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट इतना बड़ा चैलेंज क्यों?
Somebody's waste is an intelligent person's resource. Whatever people may say about Gen Z, but they are the ones who are really very conscious of utilization of resources. That's a positive sign. Way back in 2014-15 or some, that data I remember when we had visited Sweden. So they were making something like $100,000 of profit from waste.
We can see in newspapers there are many crises when we talk about Kerala. There has been disposal of biomedical waste which has been done into a river, and many of the villages were utilizing that water in their agricultural crop water requirement. The price of the oil has been rising, the petrol and the CNG cost has also been increased.
इतना waste हम generate कर रहे हैं और आगे भी करेंगे. Why not recover energy out of it? Industry is a good business going to.
I am Vishakha Nirwal, an architect and a sustainable consultant at D2O. We'll be discussing with Professor Neeraj Gupta, who has an experience of 4 decades in architecture and sustainability and teaching.
A very good afternoon, sir. So, sir, it is very great opportunity to have you on Worlds Environment. So, wishing you a very happy Worlds Environment Day. So, sir, today we will be discussing majorly regarding the waste and what kind of things we are facing majorly in India. So when we talk about waste, now there are different type of waste: household waste, C&D waste, medical waste. So as we both are architects and we are into profession where C&D waste is quite important. So what do you think currently how the C&D waste is being managed in India?
So we do the right thing, not only for architects, but for the nation also, the policy. See, give an example, in Mumbai, it's going through complete deconstruction. All the housing societies that build. So I don't really know exactly the place, but it seems something like 8,000 tons of CND waste is generated every day in Mumbai. That's really huge. And they have a recycling facility, but that is not even 15% of what is possible. Similarly, the situation in Bengaluru. Bengaluru new construction is going on, yes, but complete revamping of it. So it is a 6,000 tons they produce every day in Bengaluru. Delhi also is almost similar. Fortunately, Delhi is able to recycle a large volume of that, 60% let us say basically. But Bengaluru is not even doing that much of Mumbai. Now, when you come to the second tier cities and all, situation is a big disaster, not only in CND waste, but something like that. We talk about waste being used, we want to give the example of Chandigarh's that park. But then there are buildings being built there. In China, all the footpaths are built by recycled waste. India also, plastic is used for the road, this thing, and I think the ministry has done an amazing job of using that waste. And that is, I think, a point where architects can make a difference. That how they intelligently they use the debris which comes out of it. And if you go back to historical thing, जयपुर में या कहीं पर भी आप देखेंगे मकान जो है मार्बल लगाते थे बहुत सारे लोग. Why do you think that all the old houses built in 1960s and 50s, they have a driveway which is a crazy door? Random things. All the leftover pieces of marble and chips and whatever was left out was arranged with the flooring pattern and created a driveway floor or a terrace floor. So almost nothing really went out from there, of the construction. So that was a very intelligent thing to go and do. If one goes, I don't know how many of you have gone to Nahargarh in Jaipur, and that's one thing you should be looking at. Everybody looks at the fort. But the pathway when you enter Nahargarh, you'll find it is all random cut pieces of stone which was used in construction, which were left over. So they created a pathway. So we have had a tradition of intelligent, sensitive craftspersons who were doing it. But I believe modern architects love to work with fresh material. Somewhere we have missed that person. Many buildings, Jaipur, if you look at D2 has done an amazing job of using waste material. And that's intelligently going it. So it's not a waste material. So somebody's waste is an intelligent person's resource. That is what you look at it. So I have a second-hand car, it's a waste for me. So for somebody, it is very big. So it depends on your intelligence. If you are generating waste, you are probably less intelligent. That's how I.
So, sir, as you said that in tier 1 cities, the construction is going on and there is a production of 8,000 ton per day. So, when we talk about tier 2, tier 3 cities, as per the recent research, the two-thirds of the main construction of Pakka house will come definitely in tier 2 and tier 3 city. So, as per your experience, what is the guidance in points to the policymakers or the professionals so the construction waste can be handled in a manner that it can be recycled or can go to a waste to energy plant?
I mean, for government, it's very easy to consume a lot of this stuff. For example, if I'm bringing out a tender for payments, very intelligently government can say, okay, if this payment is made or recycling CNT waste, then this is the incentive that you get. Ultimately, that is how you have to create that incentive. If I make the fresh material cheaper than recycled material, I'm not stupid that I'm going to use the recycling incentive. That's one part of it. And government can do that very comfortably because there is no incentive for me to use a recycling material, whether it is CNT waste or any waste. So the whole issue is it's not even people don't want to use it. People have used it. Traditionally, like it is, historically, we have used it. But somewhere down the line, we have become vendor driven. Now, there is economics to it. Now we are talking about circular economy. Right? And there is a huge market which promotes that I could always use waste. So development has somehow been linked to how much I can waste. That is why I appear rich and affluent and things like that. So that notion, fortunately, is now changing. And younger people and whatever people may say about Gen Z, but they are the ones who are really very conscious of utilization of resources. That's a positive sign.
So, sir, as you added that the CND waste can be recycled and it can be made into products such as paper blocks. So, I can see that currently the Gen Z or maybe the modern architects, what they are opting is to purchase the green materials, which have different kind of certificate mentioning the recycle methodology and contents. So, I can see that with the time, the thinking is also getting modernized.
Yes, but all this is happening without really any good incentive or a policy support from the government. So that is where the focus has to shift. So if there is a bigger support available to such units, obviously there will be production, and higher production means this would learn. So to some extent, like fly at bricks, they were very well promoted by various agencies there. But somehow they don't work because of various reasons, construction methods and everybody wants to put up a nail or things like that. But then there is so many other material. So there are researches going on in various ways and there is a potential. But unless any new product or any innovation or any such initiative is supported by an incentive measure directly to the consumer, nobody. For example, if I am able to prove that I am using recycled material to the extent of so many percentage in my building, my land and building tax will be given a 2% rebate or 5% rebate. This is already happening in Kaiser. Focus is only on energy consumption. I'm saying while the environment has got something much bigger, we're on a city on a boiling pot when it comes to waste.
So, I would like to add that when sir is talking about incentives, there are different type of green certification in which if we get the gold and platinum certification, the site and the plot area will get additional FAR as per the bylaws of that particular state. So in that, there is a point that a few of the materials should be procured locally and have recycled material. So that's how the policy and the government and the bylaws has connected utilization of waste in green products. Now, sir, as we were talking about the behavior of the current professionals or the mindset of the consumers. So currently, we work culturally evolved not to generate waste. Now, as per the mindset which is more towards fast speed and economically, we can say that the sustainable pillar from cultural has been shifted to circular economy. So that's how we can connect and make more utilized. So that's a very good point. Sustainability is an umbrella in which all the points are coming and we can connect from 0 to 1 point. Now, sir, as we can see in newspapers, there are many crises when we talk about Kerala, where has been disposal of biomedical waste, which has been done into a river. And many of the villages were utilizing that water in their agricultural crop water requirement. So, do you feel that there any kind of thing which can be done to avoid this, and how these are affecting the micro plastic contains in crop?
This is, I think, I wasn't really aware that when and who did this. They dumped it into Kerala in the river, what you say, but I'm sure some of this must be reported. But I think even the normal landfill, without scientifically done, and which is what most of the landfills are. And in fact, recently, with reference to Jaipur, there was a small PhD research in Mathura Daspura they had done. A lot of plastic dump is there. And they found that the microplastics and the plastics are getting it. Well, but not only that, the agricultural production is reducing because of the leachate which is creating out of this. So that is a very, very dangerous thing, because ultimately microplastics, they get in the water system, and water systems are they come to human body, and that's going to be another very big disaster there. So I think I want to discuss this in great detail. There is one assistant professor there, Garima Kaushik in environmental science. So they are working on microplastics and this. So that's a very heartening sign that people in institutions are working on specific items, at least highlighting the problems. And once you have highlighted the problem, then the solution then automatically emerges. Or at least the people become aware of what to do and what not.
As per my understanding, sir, the production of the leachate cannot be reduced to 0%. So I think it can be collected with the right methodology and can be used as a fertilizer. That is one solution, and other can be discussed. And
see, when we say waste disposal, so 80% of the total garbage, if you take all the trash which is generated, 80% is not scientifically disposed. It just goes, it is dumped somewhere. So there's a huge difference in a landfill, which is scientifically designed, and the landfill which is just a dump. And that is where I think your earlier question about the tier 2 cities or smaller cities is important, because even if the bigger cities are not able to set up an example of a scientific landfill, how do we expect from the smaller municipal bodies, which are really neither they have technology nor they have the awareness, education, technical people, or the resources, financial resources to do that? So ultimately, it all ends up this. So what is happening is, unless probably if somebody has to protest, the farmer should be protesting, because all that urban waste is dumped into land nearby, which may be a government land, but the actual impact is that of a farmer, because his water is getting polluted. That woman who is walking with the cattle, she is into, because they are using their water which is contaminated.
so they are facing the first.
It's like, yeah, so it's not in my backyard scenario. If they start doing, then I think they will have to wake up.
Ultimately, we are also consuming that crops in one and another form. That is affecting our health.
This way it comes, that's where the circular ill health comes in. You know, there is not a circular economy. So we don't adopt circular economy, then actually we are falling the trap of waste, causing problems to us. And no wonder that so many diseases, especially skill-related diseases, deaths, lungs, all that.
Because air pollution, water pollution, and
Everything that's put together. That's one part of it. But imagine the disaster if you have seen any landfill site or any dump anywhere, and you go and have a look at the people, the workers who are working there, you will find that the thousands of rag pickers you will find. Girls and boys who should be going to the school, they are picking up polythene so that they can have their biscuit when they want it. the healthcare workers were working in the field. Now, every for construction labor and everything for so many other forces, we say that it is there is a government classifies hazardous work, and hazardous workers they get higher daily wages. Unfortunately, the poor road sweeper or the sanitary worker working at the site, they are not yet being considered as hazardous work. So, Aaron, so when you talk in policies, once you look at this thing, why they are the biggest hazard, handling biomedical waste or doing all that stuff, that's something really. So it's not only cattle, food. Ultimately, if I pollute something, the whole cycle, I'm going to get it back. That's for sure.
Now, sir, when we talk about the segregation, when we study all the rules related to solid waste management 2016 and 17 manual, basic segregation when we talk about in household level is into dry and wet waste only. And when we go up to the hospital level or maybe to the hospitality level, the segregation is only divided into 5 parts. I'm not sure whether it's also happening or not. So when we talk about good countries like China and Sweden, how they are able to process their waste to convert it to something valuable. So how should we focus on segregation at the human level?
There's two things now here. If you follow the process of door-to-door garbage collection, I used to actually segregate my waste in dry waste and this thing given it. And then you find that the person dumps it into the same container. Correct? Even if he's segregating at his own container level, the landfill site, it is all mixed up, all the rated. So I've actually followed a cart right from Malviya Nagar till Angariyabad and find where the piece were. So right from transfer station. So that segregation was for a 6. There is no segregation at that level. So that is so to say that this is being segregated unless then the complete system is exactly what I'm saying. When you talk to an officer of the development authority or the municipal body, after saying everything, they will say that people need to be cultured and people have to do that. And when you ask the lady of the house that why you are not segregating it, she says, कि वो देखो करने के बाद में तो उसने वहां पर डाल दिया, why do they segregate? It's getting mixed up. So unless you have the whole system in place, that it will not work. Supreme Court, in fact, said that you have to segregate waste in 4 parts. That's at least the mandate they brought, or the domestic waste brought. So dry, wet, sanitary, and e-waste. The e-waste is a biggest disaster. All the batteries going to the landfill sites and all that. So there's hardly any mechanism available for this. So this is absolutely, there are some very small units of this like that. And mind it, we are only talking about the domestic waste, municipal waste. Imagine the industrial waste and the hospital waste, or let's say agricultural waste, or mining waste. You know, next to Kishangarh, there is a very wonderful site of marble slurry which is there, which is being shoots, which is all being used for shoots there. And the recent study came that all the people who were working there were regularly wanted to take. They are into trouble because of the problems. So, in fact, that place has become a tourist place. People have the pre-wedding shoots, assuming that this is ice or snow or something like this. So, point is, there's such a lack of awareness at various levels, and there is nobody to tell, look, this is a hazardous dump, you cannot be there. No, why can't we have those warnings? In fact, it's being kind of flouted around, so wow, we have this kind of a waste. What is the impact of that? 15, 20 kilometers in that radius land to all becoming infertile. This water quality is not. So that is what is. Unless we have a systemic approach, we cannot do that. And waste collection, segregation, management, disposal, the whole cycle is, unless it is integrated, it's very, very challenging to say that who is at fault and where is the problem.
So, sir, when we talk about segregation, there are many good countries who has set a good example. So, what do you feel?
I think sounds bad, but looking at them, like countries like Sweden, they have segregation, and I was told when we were visiting there, 35 variations. That means if I have a bottle which has a toilet cleaner, plastic bottle, that is disposed of separately. And I have another bottle which has a shampoo, that is disposed of separately. And there's the bottle which is a oil. So it's not that all these things goes to a waste because they're worried about that. And in fact, for them, that is something. There are high voltage nations in Europe where less than 1% of the waste goes to the landfill side. 99%, no, not recycling, let's say recovering. So, for example, in Sweden, almost 50% of the domestic waste is recycled on an average. Europe, some nations, they are 47 to go. Not that everybody is like, no, there are certain nations where 95% of the waste goes to landfill sites. They're also there. So, if we can feel happy that yes, we are as good as some of those countries in Europe, that's not the case. But when you look at the good examples, China, the way they have converted waste to energy as a plant, they're making money out of it. Sweden, they have done, in fact, they have such a huge capacity of generating energy out of waste that they have to import
From other
and they buy waste. So from Norway, from UK, they buy waste. And within, of course, Sweden also, I mean, there are cities like Borås, which is a net zero energy city in that sense. They do everything under the sun, which is possible, and high technology kind of it. So every household is heated by the hot water supplied by the central system, which is hot water is generated by using incineration and scientific incineration of a very high technology of the waste. And next to that is their whole industrial plant, the industrial area, and the units which are there, they are the ones who use steam. So like it has to be integrated. So if I'm generating heat here, that has to be stored. So they made a huge flask. And they said, why can't they supply water? So now every household was earlier using a boiler at home, either oil-fired boilers or wood-fired. Now 80% of them are using a direct hot water supply to this. So when you look at the energy, you have to look at the energy recovery as a camp. Industrial units do that, and like, for example, the cement plant in Biawat, which is known for the best energy recovery from the stack, because hot air which is going to the chimney, so they keep stacking it. And that's probably the world's most energy efficient plant. Nobody, I do not know why it's not even advertised or talked about it. So there are very good examples available. Hotels, they do a lot of energy recovery because for them that is a huge cost. So energy which is recovered from the DG is used for heating water part of it. So all those are, and the heat exchangers and all.
So, sir, when we talk about converting the waste into energy, there are several plants in India which are ongoing and working in full efficiencies. But can we more focus on utilizing that energy into different levels?
Again, like I said, systemic approach when we look at it. In India, all waste to energy plants are not very successful yet for a very interesting reason that there's a lot of waste segregation by the informal kawadiwalas and even at the household levels and all. So the calorific value of the waste that we have is not as good as what the European countries would have this. Having said that, so if you cannot import a technology which is completely alien to this, so the waste characterization has to be understood very well. And unless there is an indigenous design, it cannot work. Otherwise, it's a very, very profitable thing. And so way back in 2014, 15 or some, that data I remember when we had listed Sweden. So they were making something like $100,000 of profit from waste. They were actually buying waste from outside, generating energy and doing this. And they're doing it at a level which is kind of unimaginable. So give you a small example. In a city of Boros, the waste is collected, biodegradable separate, that is converted to compost, which is getting you gas. and all the municipal buses and a lot of cars they run by that. So government had incentivized that in a manner. The petrol prices were higher. So if you are using a vehicle which is run by biogas or has a hybrid model, then you are getting some discounts and something. That's one part of it. But all the municipal buses they were running on biogas. That's one part of it. The second part of it was that after doing everything, so you recycle a lot of material. Almost like I said, 50% of the waste is recycled. But then there are certain things available like which can be used, like fluff, and which is very difficult to do that. That was converted to energy. And there were occasions when the energy, so next to this incinerator, now let me tell you, even Swedish people think that burning waste is not the best option because it has its own challenges, you know. But they had done it at a very higher level of technologies and all. So you simply cannot burn plastic and get energy out of it because you get toxins out of it. So next to this incinerator is an industrial area. So they were supplying steam to that. And they found that still there was more waste being generated because a plant has to run on a continuous cycle. The initial firing of an incinerator requires wood or that kind of waste. Then it catches up heat, then you can burn this. So how do you store heat? So they decided to build a big thermos. That means you are storing water at 60 degrees centigrade. You put more energy into it, water will become 90 degrees centigrade. That's the way they found to store energy, sir. And all the city which was surviving for the thermal comfort on their boilers and their homes, the citizens were given an option, okay, fine, if you buy hot water, you don't have to use that and that will be cheaper. And the municipality gave them a rate. Now the question the initial phases, people say, but what happens if we don't get that hot water? I mean, like here, they also did not trust the municipal bodies to survive them hot water. So there was financial assurance given that in out of 30 days, even if one day you don't get hot water, you don't pay for the whole month. So that's what it is. So you are getting hot water there. The other important aspect is that there is a continuity of the commitment. So the mayors after mayors as they came, everybody built upon what was there. I feel that whenever some top of the organization comes, he somehow or she somehow believes that, look, I am going to change this world and whatever earlier people had done, they are not done the best things. So, everybody tries to use their own, reinvent the wheel. So that was one difference, cultural difference. That what happened in 1970s was taken over in 1980s and somebody else comes. So they said, why can't we supply hot water to the houses? Now the hot water is available to the houses. The next mayor comes.
For the domestic use.
For the domestic use.
So the first one was for the thermal comfort.
Thermal comfort. Domestic use. So you are supplying the water. Then somebody said, what do we do about it? So they said, we have a natural problem, challenge of getting the snow cleared. So can we heat few roots? How do you heat the roots? Because everybody takes a bath in the morning using 40 degrees centigrade of water. That water goes to their brain, which is 25 degrees centigrade. So they put metallic pipes like a radiator where this hot water coming out of the drains will travel to thick pipes. They have designed it. They have resources to do that kind of an infrastructure. So they were heated roads. So by the time you step out your bath and breakfast, the snow has melted. Not only that, it doesn't stop. In certain locations, when this hot water is to win, let's say that comes out at 20 degrees centigrade. Now, if you put that kind of a hot water in an aquatic stream or sea or the river, still it will have, even though it is treated, there's the heat in there. So some company will buy that water, bring it to the 5 degrees centigrade before it is put to the sea. So, there's a consciousness at the industrial level because it's a good business sense to save energy. India also, this thing has happened in many places. Hospitality industry has done a wonderful job of it because for them, but it has not traveled further down either in the public sector or the thing. So that awareness and that knowledge about how to do it is possible. And we are not really a poor country in the sense that we don't have the capital to do it. Because if it's something makes a business sense, people will do it. So good policy support, things can really work out.
if some colleges, state, or at the global level, or maybe at the national level, if few of the researches are being funded, so do you feel that we will be more ahead or maybe able to match the speed in the waste management?
You have triggered a very, what you call, the pain point that you have on the research. You see, in India, the research is all in isolated. It's never there to, as a consolidated form, to create a product. That's one big challenge. Everybody is doing research and it all goes to the shell. Very few of them get patents and things like that. And a lot of patents are also not commercial. You get a patent, but then they're not commercialized. That's one part of it. So unless there is a specific funding for a specific work, things may not work. For example, if government gives all the JRF scholarships to the PhD scholars, it's all generic. I mean, we will have to give, these are the problems of this country, fine, but it may not be country-wide, we are too big. So these are the problems of, let's say, Rajasthan. What are the institutions who have that capacity to do that? And the research funding is given to them. Okay, can you solve this real life problem of the municipal body? Can you solve this real life problem of this? Then things will really change drastically. And there's a very good innovative mind available. So rather than producing research just for a PhD degree, you will be doing a big service to the nation. Of course, you get the PhD degree automatically. But then or not automatically, but no, it's more to do with the kind of a commitment. So when you have a very clear clarity at the top level that for what we are funding. In fact, recently that National Research Fund actually identifies certain area where climate change is one issue, energy is one issue. So that's a very important thing. But I am yet to see it actually being implemented in higher education institutions. So, isolated examples, if there are some. So there is no push. Look, we will give funds for this JRF, or we'll give you a scholarship if you are willing to work in this particular area, which is of a larger national interest. So energy, what would be the best thing? Then that's a common thing, whether it's Kerala or Sikkim or Leh. So saving energy, and can we do that? Recycling things and all that. So those are so there is a definite need for a very high impetus on the research, which is focused and funded for that particular aspect of it. Otherwise, I am very clear that if we have that kind of funding available, so this meeting of sustainable development goals by 2030, I mean, it's right there around the corner. So whether it can be done or not is a question. But at least we are moving in that direction. Not a lot of people will move in that direction.
At least we will be able to achieve some percentage of it if we.
It will be better off if we have this thing. Or maybe for the next cycle of it, there will be enough body of knowledge available for us which could be commercialized, but could be used very constructive. That's what I'm saying.
So when we talk about good example of cities such as Indore, Pune, where the waste segregation from the source point to the disposable, it's a very good example, and they are able to maintain it also from many years. So what challenges do you feel that it is not being able to implemented in other cities of India?
It's a complex question, definitely to be answered on a podcast. I don't want to get into trouble with the system. But at the end of the day, I'll say that many things which can be institutionalized have become individualized. It's not only Indore, it's many places that you find. When a long back, much before all this saturation was going on, I remember going to Pune and we found that there's every panwala had a small little futa dustbin, plastic container or something. So, because I was just picked up and I think I bought something and we could sense that I'm from outside. He pointed to that way. And I found out that the then municipal commissioner or whosoever the person was there, he kind of nominated some Bordens kind of people, all the youth in that area, and they were given the slip of a chalan. So there are two things which were punitive measures or incentive measures. Unfortunately for the waste management sector, Neither do we have very good incentive measures nor punitive measures. This person did that, and that made a big difference. When I'm talking about Pune, where we were visiting, they were not the urban elite areas or business things. These were kind of EWS areas, or we were actually doing a study of the Kache Ossis. So it was spotting as compared to what you get to see outside. That is one part of it. Other is the cultural kind of a thing. If you happen to travel from, let's say, Shillong to Guwahati to catch a flight, moment you enter, you exit Meghalaya, you find litter on the road on the both the sides. So it cannot be, it's a culture. I mean, because the same kind of people are living there, because the kind of understanding that they have had and the kind of realization they have had and the kind of education and awareness that it's exactly the same way that when we go abroad, we are very particular about throwing our waste. But here you are traveling, so in a 1 crore means worth of car, and then you find a hand coming out where the wrapper flies off. So that is one part of it. If somebody was actually taking a video shots of that and chalaning them for throwing that waste outside, probably that may make a difference. Or it may not, because we are a vast country. Point is, as a policy measure, there must be incentives. And there has to be some disincentives also. That is how it works. That's something. So few cities, they did a very good job of doing it consistently. They got awards. Others also have been doing work, but they're isolated islands of personal commitment of the officer concerned or the political leader concerned.
Or maybe a community driven mindset.
Maybe a community driven mindset. I mean, of course, like cities like Pune, every society is supposed to segregate use. They have, by I think some ruling, they must have this composting in their society. Now it is smelly, but then if it is there, as everybody has accepted that. So all I have visited their housing society. On the periphery, you have those kind of a community recycling plants available, compost plants are available, where people come up with their bio waste, put it up there. So it has a cultural impact also. Nations, I mean, we are a very vast thing. So, कुछ जगह पर we are more dependent on the government. Some people have this thing. So societal movement, for example, in Maharashtra works very well. In Gujarat, it works very well. It may not work so well in few other states. So that is, I think, one cultural aspect of it, which is what to do with education and awareness that people have fought at that part. Education, when I mean not the degrees, but
Awareness.
the sanskar, the how they've been brought up. It's not only about keeping your place clean, but the whole community clean. So that kind of a feeling is missing in certain cities, and so that makes a difference. There's a limit to which the government can clean up.
So, sir, to summarize the discussion which we are having and to draw a conclusion, what I can understand is that if we want to do something, one thing can be done at a part of awareness and training. At the small age, it can be started, which can go to the post-graduation part. As I was the part of the post-graduation of doing Masters in Architecture from Settled University of Rajasthan, they have started introducing a module to manage the waste, and it has some credentials which will be reflected in our result and report cards. And the second is that we can also do the trainings for the youngsters and the professionals, which can later on help the industries such as hospital management, hospitality, factories, and other at the community level, society level. They can give guidelines and policies how the waste can be managed. So, do you have any extra points on that?
No, I would say that educational courses on waste management, nothing is available, that's for sure. For example, I look at architectural design thesis. When you go for evaluation, people are looking for the aesthetics and the forms and everything. Nobody probably tries to look up the very basic fact that have you given a ramp for the physically challenged? Or do you have a waste bin placed in the right corner? Or do you have a storage space? I in my college, even though I've done it from a premier institute, had no clue that if I'm designing a hotel, I must have a air conditioned room to store the wet waste of the kitchen. So, so which was considered very elitist kind of a thing. Do we provide for that kind of a space? For that matter, you will do a kitchen interior which is worth maybe 50 lakhs or something. How many people actually specify two bins which are built in the modular cabinet where the housewife can properly store it and put it there? That is the biggest challenge that we have. Fortunately, professionals are doing it. So there's a huge need and demand, and I would urge all the professionals to create small courses because not everything can come from colleges, and I have a little hope in that because colleges also happen that you prepare in an exam and do it, go out. But the impact can be seen. I remember a few students who had done this master's program when they went out to design a wedding venue in Panipat. They were very conscious of it and they actually created waste disposal bins and the spaces for that, which was so impressive that the local municipal body officer, the bureaucrat there, when he came for the wedding, he looked at it, he asked them to give them some policy kind of a thing and made it mandatory. Just like parking, unless you have a proper waste collection and disposal facility, I'll not give you a license to run a wedding venue. So those are the kind of things which are important. This education brings it. I keep coming back to Satan because wonderful example is coming there. At the kindergarten level or slightly higher level, the kind of fun activities include using potato peel and how do you make compost out of it. And by that, they're giving. So that is how, right from the age of 4 or 5, the child is made to understand the value of waste. That waste is not a waste, it is a resource. Now, if I implant that in somebody's mind
From the starting.
you cannot go wrong. So there is no need to have any punitive action because that is my mind is wired. The whole culture is that of how I behave. Culture has got nothing to do with what is the writing on the wall, the vision, mission statements. Culture is how the leader of the organization behaves and what people experience. So when I'm talking about waste management and waste and things like that, or using resources, and I find that I am giving 20 big bouquets, there's a lot of plastic in there, spending so much of money on that, and then that goes to garbage right before my eyes. As a student, what I'm going to get? So we have to bring in that behavioral change. One part of it. I think there is a shortage of good training programs on this subject where people can scientifically learn. Even in the European, in Indian context, we really need to create very good short programs which people will, I'm sure, will buy and they earn because professionals are willing to learn, but they may not go to a 6 months course or 1 year course. So there's a huge market for learning at their own pace where they can design their own this thing. So if I'm, let's say, landscape planner, I'm designing a garden or landscaping something, then I would like to learn a few things about it. And they have to be Indianized. So those kind of training programs, if somebody offers, I'm sure they'll be takers. And that's what professionals will do that. And with passage of time, the government is also getting into this mode that if the credits can be transferred, so you can get into the academic bank of credit. So a lot of liberalization in that context is taking at the policy level, yes. Implementation level, probably senior citizens like me are not so happy about, these modularities and these plug and play kind of things. But I think that's the order of the day. So education and awareness is to a large extent from the professionals. We move out from the educational colleges to individuals, organizations who are offering quality care. Now, that's what I read.
So to end our discussion, there is the last point. So current situation, we can see that everywhere there is a war situation. Maybe it's pausing somewhere and it's going on somewhere, and that is affecting the price of everything from which we are consumable or directly we are connected, such as the price of the oil has been rising, the getting cylinders, the intervals is being increased, the petrol and the CNG cost has also been increased. So when you take an example of countries and cities which are self-sufficient and they are net zero, I think they are at very much profit currently. And we can take an example from them how external things will not affect if they are being strong and have a good mindset about.
I think this is the right time. This is a very good trigger for us to generate waste-based energy using, or in fact, develop their own technology for doing that. And that's an important thing. And in fact, there are nations they believe that energy getting from the waste is far better option than atomic power. That's what is there in terms of the infrastructure investment and things like that. There are various lobbies which are operating against waste to energy, and there are various lobbies operating for the energy. But I personally believe that when it comes to renewables, it's not only the solar energy which will make a difference, because solar energy, the panels, once they live their life, when you look at the life cycle costing and their final disposal, you're going to find some challenges there. So unless we have a waste-based energy collections, at least at the experimental level, I'm sure government systems could try. इतना waste हम generate कर रहे हैं और आगे भी करेंगे. So why not recover energy out of it? Why not? So that is, I think, that industry is a good business going to be. It just needs a push from the government and a focus of the government, and it will make a huge difference. So that's what I believe.
So there is a shocking fact which I would like to highlight is that when we talk about the professionals who wants to work on giving a waste management plan or policy for a particular site or project, in India currently we do not have per capita waste thumb rule. So in NBC, 4 typology as per commercial household industry, there is a range which has been defined, and I can see that in other countries per capita waste has been mentioned. So for professionals there is a gap also that we are not able to study things to arrive at a solution. So for this, at the end I would like to say that DDO Learning will be coming up with few courses which will be training and making awareness for the youngsters or maybe graduation persons. And a second will come up for the professionals who want to go into the consultancy of providing waste management. So, Neeraj sir, thank you so much for coming and giving time. It was a wonderful discussion.
So I want a coffee now.
Yes, sir. Fine.
Thank you.